I'm glad that now there's a lot more entrepreneurs that talk about building a brand and that whole process. I also wish there were more people who talked about the failures because I think we learn so much more from the failures than we do from the successes. Um, and I went through so many failures, and I've also seen, since I worked with a lot of startups, I've seen a lot of their failures, so I get to learn a lot and try to avoid those pitfalls, moving forward.
Turn this up, turn this up.
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality.
Hi, I'm Paul Ferranbi, and welcome to IncrediPaul Leadership, where we learn how to become the most incredible versions of ourselves by learning from each other. Today, I have the honor of having Kimberly Shane on the podcast. She's a seasoned footwear designer with over 25 years of experience in the industry. She's a trailblazer and became the first African-American female footwear designer at Nike. That is phenomenal right there. I'll keep going. But she has worked for several brands such as Jordan, Adidas, and Converse. She is dedicated to advancing the field of footwear, design, and mentoring the next generation of designers. So that was just a snippet of you, Kim. But how about you introduce yourself the way you would do it?
Oh, thank you, Paul. I'm so glad to be here. Um, like Paul said, my name is Kimberly Shane. I'm a footwear designer. I've been designing shoes for over 25 years. I'm originally from Miami, Florida.
Oh,
And now I work with startups, helping them to bring their visions and dreams to life. And
wow.
I'm like I said, I'm very glad to be here.
That is phenomenal. The working with startups. So what made you want to start working with startups, or was it kind of like serendipitous how that's happened?
Wow. Working with startups is fun because now that I've accumulated a lot of these great relationships
Mm-hmm.
throughout the years, I'm able to help them navigate, help them not get taken advantage of in the industry, especially dealing with factories and cost and things like that, and basically just walking them through the process from the beginning to end so that
Mm-hmm.
they understand and know what to expect and how things should flow.
That's really good because really
Yeah.
from your expertise, you kind of know the ins and outs of the industry and some of the things that people may not even know to ask. And so
Right.
I'm curious as far as like, assume like I'm a startup. I want to design shoes. What are the common things that people don't know about being a startup in the shoe space? Like, what do you commonly help people with?
Well, I think a lot of times people that start shoe brands they're not necessarily in the shoe industry.
Okay.
That's like, oh, I just love shoes
Mm.
and I want to start a brand, or I see a problem. Um, for instance, maybe there's a brand that uh, she wants some larger size shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And she wants to start a shoe brand because she needs her shoes to be in larger sizes.
Mm-hmm.
So I help to navigate that whole process and give them the realistic expectations,
Mm.
especially when it comes to cost and when it comes to timing,
Yeah.
of what it is that you're getting into,
Mm-hmm.
and do you are you really financially able to make this commitment, because the shoe industry is very difficult and it's
Mm.
very expensive.
Wow.
So you just have to have all your ducks in a row to make sure you're able to finance the different steps that are needed to move forward.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's really good to know. As far yeah, I know very little about the shoe industry. I know about buying shoes and wearing shoes, but that is
Right.
the limit of where my knowledge
Exactly,
goes.
exactly.
Uh,
Yeah, it's very difficult.
yeah, yeah.
So, and there's a big difference between creating a brand, and that's another question I ask a lot. Are you trying to create a brand, or are you just creating, just you just want to release a product?
Okay.
You know, because that's a whole nother process. There's two different processes,
Yeah. So the people that
you know.
come to you, do they more want help with a brand or a product, or is it kind of a mix?
For the most part, they want help. They want to build a brand,
Okay.
but the realities of all that's involved
Yeah.
is somewhat, especially if I'm dealing with a former athlete. It's just like,
Mm,
oh, I want to build, my own brand, and literally, there's no logo yet. There's no logo font. There's no brand colors. There's
hmm.
nothing in place yet. So I found that I have to work on like uh, basically a retainer
Mm,
because I find myself being hired to design a shoe.
hmm.
But in reality, I end up doing brand strategy,
Mm.
visual identity. I'm
Wow.
I'm helping with business plans, and I'm putting together pitch decks, and
Wow.
I'm doing all this stuff. But I only charge for just to create a shoe, and I'm like,
Wow.
no.
Yeah, that
So I'm learning a lot too.
yeah, that sounds like a lot. And so I know a little bit about building a brand just from the stuff I do with IncrediPaul. And it takes time. And this isn't
Right.
the first logo I had for IncrediPaul. It's the second one, and I have like the other one that I use as well. And so you talked. I want to stay on this brand thing for a second. What are some key
Mhm.
parts to establishing a brand, or even creating a brand that you work with people on?
I think really a lot of it comes back to, why you're doing it, and are you
Mm.
really solving a real problem?
Mm.
And so I kind of want to talk about that because um, I started a brand. My first brand I started was a kids brand,
Mm.
and I was fresh out of Nike. I was like, I want to start my brand. And since I'm a designer, I'm so focused on creating this great product,
Yeah.
right? So I'm so focused on creating a great product. And I didn't have mentors around me yet who had already started a brand or had created a
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
So really the only part I knew was, okay, how to create a great shoe. I
Mm.
didn't understand that you need all these other elements surrounding it to, actually get it sold. And I really didn't look at, am I really solving a problem?
Mm. Are you looking for a place to continue to grow and develop, especially in your leadership? How about connecting with others who feel the same way? Hi, I'm Paul Ferrandi, aka IncrediPaul, and I've got great news for you. The IncrediPaul community is for people who desire to become the most incredible versions of themselves. The community is for individuals who are goal-driven and action-oriented. This community is dedicated to leadership and personal growth, especially in going deeper in your career, starting a business, or developing a business. Join me in becoming the most incredible version of yourself. Go to incredipaul.org/community to join the waitlist and sign up. INCREDI Paul.org/community. Join the waitlist. I can't wait to see you there.
And that was one of the things that I really had to think about. It's just like, am I really solving a problem? And my consumer that I'm targeting, are there enough consumers out there to buy this product? And that's where I kind of ran into a wall because I created something that was really niche, and the target, I was missing my target market. I was trying to I was aiming for a younger target market, and I ended up getting older, seasoned mothers who wanted to buy this product for their grandkids. So I completely missed the mark on it because I was just so focused on the product, and I created this awesome shoebox that turned into like a school bus.
Oh,
It was
wow.
amazing. Yeah, it was super fun, super fun. I was trying to combine my love for footwear and my love for learning. So it was almost like the footwear version of like an educational toy.
Wow.
but like I said, I completely missed the target market. And, and I didn't I there was so many things about running a business or making the business successful that I just didn't know. I
Mm,
just didn't have privy to the information,
yeah. Yeah.
you know.
That's a good point. Like creating a brand is not easy. And I think
It is not.
it definitely takes some iterations as well,
Yes.
because and you have to take the time to like analyze and see how things are going. And I think with
Yeah.
branding, entrepreneurship, and leadership, there's similarities across the board as far as really what you were talking about with your brand, understanding your why in your brand, why
Mhm.
in your entrepreneurship, why in your leadership. Because if you don't understand why you're there, or your why is not
Yeah.
aligned with the people you're trying to meet, you're going to be really frustrated, stressed out, and things are not going to go as you want them to do.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So that was definitely lessons learned. So I'm glad that now there's a lot more entrepreneurs that talk about building a brand, and that whole process. I also wish there were more people who talked about the failures because I think we learn so much more from the failures than we do from the successes. Um, and I went through so many failures, and I've also seen, since I worked with a lot of startups, I've seen a lot of their failures, so I get to learn a lot and try to avoid those pitfalls, moving forward.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
really good point. The failures, and I'm laughing and smiling because that's something I like to talk about: failures and resilience. Because I talk about that rejection or failure is inevitable, and really
Yeah.
anyone that has done anything that is of substance or is continuing to move forward has failed. And the reason why I mention that is that you can think about it as a negative, like, oh, they failed, I'm going to fail. But you realize that these people, whether it's the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Tyler Perrys, all of these people that are
Right.
billionaires, they have failed as well. So if they have failed
Yes.
and they're billionaires, how am I going to think that I'm a startup and I'm not going to fail? Everything's just going to go smoothly. I'm not going to have any issues. So I think there's some
Right.
comfort in that, to know that these highly successful people are failing,
Mhm.
and the failure is just a stepping stone that Lily reaches, that takes them to the success.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And it's failures. I hate to say failures. They're opportunities.
That's a good
They're
word for it,
opportunities.
opportunity.
Um, you know, so there were a lot of opportunities, and also to the realities. I feel like it's a lot harder to, um, as a minority, to bounce back from those failures. Because honestly, a lot of times you get that one shot. You say, "Oh, I'm going to start my own brand. I'm going to start my own business." You have your friends and your family's like, "Yes, we're behind you. We support you," and they help in any way that they can through their expertise or their finances or what have you. But if you fail, I feel like that bounce back is a lot harder for us than for some others. And let me tell you, I keep bouncing back. I'm just I am definitely, I feel like if God's given you the vision to do something, He will give you provision. So I just continue to keep moving forward, and just keep learning from those opportunities, and it'll happen.
Yeah, I love that. Was a bar you said just there. If God gives you the vision, He will give you the
Yeah,
provision. I'm gonna repeat that for anyone who missed that. That's really good. That really, when you understand your purpose, your why, for us as people of faith, what God has called us to do, and we walk in it, that
yeah,
keeps us motivated even when we fail or we start to hit roadblocks as well.
right. Yeah. So It's definitely been a journey.
Yeah, it's a
It's
journey.
definitely been a journey.
It's a journey. Well, speaking of journey, I know you talked about being in the footwear design industry for over 25 years. So take me
Yes,
back to when,
it has evolved.
yeah, I'm sure it's definitely evolved. But even like when
Yeah.
you first started, is that what you were looking to do as far as doing shoewear design? Or like, to talk me through how you even decided that you wanted to be a footwear designer?
You know, honestly, I mean, I come from my whole dad's side of the family are creatives. My dad was a self-taught oil painter. He painted paintings that you would have to get inches away to realize that they were not a photograph. My grandmothers all sewed, my mom sewed. Everyone was basically really creative. And then I have the other side that was all educators. So I've come from a long line of educators and creatives, and I've always been drawing. But honestly, I grew up in the inner city in Miami and Liberty City. Um, and you just don't know what you can do with that. It's just like I could draw, I could take photographs, I could do a lot of things, but there was a limit of opportunities that we were aware of. Um, and the great thing about Miami is that we have a lot of magnet programs. So those magnet programs, I started a magnet program in the fourth grade.
Wow. In the fourth
So
grade?
yeah, I started my first magnet program in the fourth grade.
Yeah. And for those,
In Miami.
I was
Oh, go
gonna
ahead.
say, I don't want to cut you off, but for those who aren't familiar with what magnet programs are, can you explain it?
So magnet programs are schools that specialize in certain things. So like my magnet program specialized in the visual arts. So we had, music, dance, drama, art, and we had those teachers. The great part was a lot of the teachers either were former dancers or artists that had their own galleries and they taught. So we got a lot of great teachings from the educators there. And it's something you had to audition to get into those schools, and you had to maintain a certain grade point average to stay there.
That sounds like high stakes, a lot of pressure.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, it was, and I was able to get high school credit. So I actually started college as a sophomore. So I skipped my freshman year.
Wow. That,
So yeah,
that's
so I've
cool.
always wanted to do art, but I just didn't know. It's just like, okay, the obvious things were there. Were you going to be an art teacher, an architect, um, a fashion designer? And I just didn't know. And honestly, when I was in high school, probably about the 10th grade, um, there was a young man that came to our school. He had graduated from my school. I went to the New World School of the Arts in downtown Miami, and he was a graduate from there. He came back, and he was a car designer, and he talked about what it was like, being a car designer. And then the light bulb went off. I was like, oh, I want to be a car designer too. So honestly, I began my career or um, my thoughts and everything moving forward. I was like, I wanted to do car design. So I went to school for car design,
That's cool. I like
and
that.
but the major is called industrial design.
Yeah, industrial design. Yep.
But but I went to specialize in car design. So that was truly fun. But you have to understand around that was in the 90s. So honestly, you couldn't major in footwear design. It just didn't exist. It didn't exist. So a lot of the designers back then that did footwear they came from they were architects
Really?
or graphic designers. Yeah, there was no footwear design major. Um, and I had an intern at Ford, and my mentor at Ford, I expressed to him. That's why what is it called? Internships. That's why I feel internships are so important, because when I did my internship in advanced studios at Ford, I realized that this wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. I mean, the way it was presented in school was great, but that wasn't there were a lot of other challenges that I knew I would have to face being in that industry. And it's something that I really didn't didn't want to do. I just wanted to be creative and I just wanted to create. And he approached me and was just like, well, have you ever thought about doing shoes? And because he had an intern that came through previously that went on to work at Adidas. And he was like, have you ever thought about doing shoes? And I was like, oh my goodness, shoes. It never crossed my mind that this was actually a job, like someone's actually sitting at a desk drawing shoes. And I was just like, yes, I would love to draw shoes, so he got me in touch with his former intern. And after graduation, I had a interview with Adidas with a portfolio full of cars.
Are you wondering what's next? Has everything you tried failed? Or maybe you just feel stuck? Then coaching might be right for you. The coaching relationship is a relationship totally centered on you. If you're tired of running on the hamster wheel of life and want to start to see results, reach out to IncrediPaul for help. So what are you waiting for? Go to IncrediPaul.org/coaching, IncrediPaul.org/coaching, or at I am IncrediPaul on all my socials. Or you can click the link in the bio for your free coaching session. I want to make sure you become the most incredible version of yourself. Wow.
So,
I just want to highlight a few things there, like really what you mentioned, the importance of internships. That I tell people the same thing, that even if it's not something that you want to do, you at least learn what you don't want to do. And an internship is in a controlled environment. You have someone that's really there for your development. So it's the best place to really figure out if it's something that you don't want to do. And then having a mentor as well that was able to see something in you as far as wanting to do something else, had someone that had interned at it, work for full time at Adidas afterwards, and was able to connect you with that. Mentorship is so important.
Yes, most definitely. So so at Adidas, that's where I learned how to do everything. It was a great place to be. I had a great team of guys. And they taught me everything I needed to know about shoes. And I got a chance to work with athletes. And when I was at Adidas, I was on the training team. So the awesome thing about that at the time was that we would get shoes created in our size. And we would go and train with the athletes so we could actually feel like what they were feeling in the shoes as we were going through the prototype stages.
That is so cool.
So so it was awesome to be able to really make adjustments, knowing, okay, I felt this, so I need to make this adjustment. So it was definitely, I had a great foundation for creating performance footwear. So it was a great opportunity.
To go from your portfolio full of cars to really finding what you really love at Adidas, that is phenomenal. I know you work.
Shoes are just cars without wheels.
Cars without. Yeah, they do get us to where we need to go. I love that analogy. Shoes are just cars without wheels. That's gonna stick with me. I love that. Shoes are cars without wheels. So I know you worked for a few different places as well, and that you were the first African-American female designer at Nike. So kind of walk me through how that happened. Was that your next step, or did you work at somewhere between Adidas and Nike?
Yeah, well, the first in footwear.
In footwear, yeah.
So,
yeah.
But But it's so funny. It's like a lot of people highlight being the first nowadays, but it's so funny because I feel like if you're the only one represented in that space during that time, it's the same amount of pressure that you experience if you're the first or the only, you know. So a lot of times I was always the only, I was the only, African American female to graduate from my class. I mean, I was in car design, so, I was in car design, and then I was the only African American female footwear designer at Adidas at that time. There was no other, so I don't know if I was the first, but I know that I was the only. And like I said, when you're in that space and you're the only, you still have that pressure of knowing that your performance, how you handle situations and things like that are going to trickle over into, is the next person going to be able to, get this job or be able to play this role, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was always a lot of pressure. But after Adidas, I actually went back home to Boca Raton, Florida. I went to a smaller brand after Adidas, and I learned about what is it called, licensee, um, designing for a licensee brand, which is a totally different process
Yeah, what
than
is that?
working for the big brands. Licensee brands work on a much tighter timeline. So in the bigger brands, you would have, a nice, beautiful laid out process. You go on inspirational trips and you go to different functions and you have big brief presentations and you go through all this stuff to get from point A to point Z. In a licensee brand, it's like, okay, this is what we need, and the timeline is a lot shorter. It's like half the time, and you're creating multiple amounts of shoes. So I might at a bigger brand, I might be responsible for maybe 3 to 5 shoes. At a licensee brand, I might be responsible for 23.
Wow.
So and you have to, there's no color designer there to help. There's no material designer there to help. You do
Oh
everything.
my goodness.
So it is a high pressured situation environment, and it was a it was a great experience. It was a great experience. So I've experienced, the big brands, the nice, comfy
More laid
situation,
back.
and then you have the high powered licensee brands where it's all about, we just need to get it out and get it going. Um, yeah. So, and then going back into, then after that, I went to Converse. So Converse at the time was just starting back up. They hadn't been bought by Nike yet. So they were just getting back into motion. So I've been at a lot of brands at a lot of different points in their career, their timing too.
That's incredible. The how you've seen different sides of business for working on the bigger brands, the licensee brands, and even different parts of their store, like you just mentioned with Converse prior to them being bought by Nike.
Right.
And I know, like, when you were talking about, I want to go back to something you said before about being the first and the only, as far as kind of having those similar feelings, similar thoughts on it. And to me, what I'm hearing is kind of like those thoughts of imposter syndrome might come up. And I'm wondering, was that true for you? Did you have feelings of imposter syndrome? And how were you able to navigate that?
Um, I think because I've always been the only in those rooms for so long. I mean, even in middle school, high school, because I was, I'm sure you've heard of, you bust in. from the city. So I was one of those ones that's bussed in. So I was always in that place of just being the only one that looked like me in the class or what have you. So I just built up a resilience for it. But also too, I had a strong foundation in my faith foundation. I knew who I was, whose I was, and I knew my value, in Christ. So I, I I knew I was meant to be wherever He opened up the doors of opportunity for me to be.
That's really powerful to really knowing your identity in Christ. And that's what fueled you, even when seemingly around you, it felt you didn't look like everyone else. You knew because
Yeah.
God had brought you there that you were meant to stay there. Well, were there any key moments? Because I know you've worked for a lot of different brands. Any key moments or stories or key things you learned throughout your journey as a shoe designer that kind of stick with you?
Ooh, let's see.
And I know I kind of put you on
Um,
the spot, so maybe like on either let's maybe key moments at Nike or like your first, because I know you talked about when you were at Adidas and going to licensee brand and Converse, like
right.
what about Nike, if Nike stood out?
I think what I've learned, honestly, the most is just how important your mental strength needs to be through all of this. When you have so many things that are happening at the same time, and just trying to maintain mental clarity and balance. Because being a creative, it's not like being a mathematician. I mean, one plus one isn't always two. I mean, you have to be in a great creative space to be able to do what you need to do. And just to make sure that I maintain a balance and order. I didn't realize how important that was until I stopped traveling to China for like COVID.
Oh man.
I didn't realize how much I needed just that time, on the plane, just to decompress, to just not hear anything, just to, be be centered again. And then it was almost like a restart. And it's like when you don't have that time of not hearing anything, I didn't realize how much it impacted, my creativity when it was gone. Especially now with my kids and husband, um, I have to really carve out that time of just silence, and that time of being centered, and just being in the present moment for me to continue to, you know, create great things. Because without it, it's like having a writer's block
Yeah.
or creative block. You
Creative
just can't
block.
do it.
Yeah. No, that's a
Yeah.
good point. Good point. No, I think
Yeah.
that's a really key thing that you brought up as far as having room for margin is so key,
Yeah.
because that, especially for if you're creative, because that's how you're able to have those thoughts and ideas come flowing. So I think, and that's something I've been working on to be more intentional about, to carve out space
Mhm.
as far as like when I'm doing certain things, and also just keeping some spaces open and not trying to fill up my calendar. So I think that
Yes.
that's a really key point that you brought up, in that just because you have the time doesn't necessarily mean that you should try and fill it with something else. But I do want to know, is there anything that we haven't talked about yet, or anything you want people like the audience to know about you, as we kind of close things out?
Um, to know about me, I love people. I love working with teams, and I love being able to learn and grow from people. And I'm just a lifelong learner, and I really stress that everyone should be lifelong learners. When you learn, teach. And I love mentoring, young people, young designers, And that's something I don't think I'll ever stop doing.
I really love that, as far as not only being a lifelong learner, but also teaching, because I think it takes a special person to teach. And it's really easy when you're good at something to just keep doing it, as opposed to
Right.
go back and lift as you climb, as we've heard it said.
Yes.
I think that's
Yes.
really key.
Awesome.
Yeah, but it's
Thank you.
it's been really fun having you on the podcast, getting to learn more about you and your journey in the shoe design, even talking about overcoming failure, navigating imposter syndrome, and just continuing to do the thing to be creative, because I know the creative space is not easy.
Yes.
But
No, it isn't.
yeah, I know you've been in it for a while, and to transition from building other people's brands, like in a corporate sense, for you to build your own brand and help others build your brand as entrepreneurs and startups. That is truly incredible.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Paul.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Yeah. I want to make sure people know how to find you as well. And I know that you also have a shoe brand. So I'll definitely talk about your shoe brand, talk about how people can find you on your socials.
Well, I'm still working on the new brand.
Yeah.
I'm still working on a new brand, but they can find me on Instagram at The Soul of Me. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Kimberly Shane on LinkedIn. So
Good.
yeah.
I'll make sure. So for those of you who are watching, you already come across the screen. For those of you listening, it's in the show notes. So definitely check it out. And if you're just listening, definitely go to YouTube, watch it at IncrediPaul. But it's been, I already said, it's been really incredible having you on the show. I learned a lot. Like I said, the most I knew about shoes before was just I put them on, and then I usually pick Nike or Jordan or pretty much all the places you work are the shoes I usually like to wear.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So I love that. But for everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed our conversation, and that when you're trying to do something, don't let imposter syndrome or feelings of that you don't fit in keep you down. Seek out mentorship. Surround yourself with people who are going to keep you motivated. Definitely either reach out to myself for help, or I know Kim does a mentoring for different people. So if you are in the design space, I'll definitely stay connected with her and all the wonderful things that she's doing so that you can keep being incredible. Thanks for listening.
Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible.